If I can, just to build off of something Michael said, he was talking about the CapEx, and that is something that buyers, savvy buyer will look and try and understand what's really going on with the cash flow of the business. I'm going to include CapEx. Is it minimal, or do we have some big expenses every year or some one-time expenses coming up? The one-time only expenses, not necessarily on CapEx, but just the add backs to get to adjusted EBITDA. And I'm sure Michael and Simon have seen this with clients. Once a client understands that they can add back these one-time only expenses or excess owner's comp, things like that, you have to be careful because sometimes they throw the kitchen sink in there, everything. And what a buyer is going to say is, wait a minute, you're having $30,000 every single month of one-time only expenses. Might be different, but every month it's 25, 30, 35,000 every single month. And that might limit your ability to have some of those add backs to adjust EBITDA.
You guys want to add to that comment on normalizations? Anything that you want to add on that?
Yes, I think we want to make sure the balance sheet is shown within the information around memorandum on which bids are made. It's important that they know the asset base of the business, and it's important that they understand that for any subsequent offer around normalized working capital. We always see that as something for consideration post-offer in terms of the heads, in terms of their due diligence on the areas of working capital. But as we do want to get it up front and understand it, and there may be particular issues around whether it's CapEx or deferred revenue, where we receive money in advance from our clients, we may want it included in the indicative offer. And if we want it included in the LOI, then we've really got to give them the information on which to make their calculations. So you would cover, and we do quite often, a section on normalized working capital so they can see how it's trended and they can see maybe some projections, but we tend to point them to the historic period and then let them make their offers on that basis.
There's a number of
final point on this.
Yeah, I mean, we look at non-arm's length transactions. So that would be an example of one where you're renting a building for yourself. You may have very low rent or very high rent to kind of move earnings. So that would be something that would be non-arm's length. The other one would be one-time events. I think the fellows have talked about that, one-time litigation. And then the third category, which can go both ways, is you just had your largest client leave. And so you can't just, project out. You've got to factor that in and factor it, or you just landed a huge client and you want to project that client out. And so those would be, those type of expenses, both positive and negative. And then lastly, and the big one, I'm sure the fellows would agree, is, owner's compensation. You've got, 5 siblings taking out millions of dollars. You only need one person to run the company. And so you add back the full expenditure and then replace it with one CEO in my example. But that's probably the largest one that we experience year in and year out.
Awesome. Well, great points on the marketing phase. Appreciate the conversation, and it was a good one. Thank you.